It was all of a sudden like, if we're going to do this, let's just do it now. There's never going to be a perfect time. And you know that, and you're probably teaching your kids this. There's never a perfect time to get married. There's never a perfect time to have kids or even quit your job and pursue something that's going to make you fulfilled. You got to do it. This is Joe Simonds from Salt Strong, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
This is episode number 24 with Joe Simonds of Salt Strong. I want to thank everybody for the emails that we've been getting at Podcast at Saltwater Experience. These emails have been great. Really happy to hear that you're liking the podcast. And also, I particularly like to hear the guests that you have suggested, some of which, including our next guest, have been suggested to us on email, and I actually tracked them down. I'm at the ICAST show this week and was able to track down some really good ones coming up. We've got Joe Simonds, April Vokey, Robert Trossett, C.A. Richardson, and Brian Latimer, as well as some other podcasts heading your way. Very, very excited about these. The conversations were excellent, and they are headed your way. Want to also acknowledge some of the people who have been giving outstanding reviews on iTunes. Rating and reviewing the show, from what I'm told, is super important, and really hate to ask it, but if you could, take just a second to rate this podcast on your iTunes app. Even a review is even better. And the fan of the week this week is Jacob G44. And what he did is he gave us a 5-star review, and he also gave us a 5-star rating, I should say. And then he also gave a nice little review. And this is what it says. Whatever you're looking for in a podcast, this one will exceed your expectations. Whether you want to hear great stories, something motivational, or life lessons, the Tom Rowland Podcast has it all. He has a variety of interesting guests on the show, and he's great at interviewing them, as well as having some awesome experiences to share of his own. So thank you, Jacob. I really appreciate that. That will do a lot to get this podcast to other people. This episode is brought to you by Waypoint TV. Here at ICAST this week, I have noticed that the tide has turned. The tide has turned in favor of digital delivery for outdoor content, and I'm noticing more and more and more outdoor producers of note putting their stuff on Waypoint. That means to you that there's more great stuff out there. And guess what? It's all free. You can watch it anywhere, anytime, on any device that you would like. And you know how you do that? You either go to waypointtv.com and use it like a standard website, or there are apps upon apps upon apps that you can get for virtually any device you have. You have an LG TV, you have a Samsung TV, you can navigate to the App Store there. You can find Waypoint TV by simply by searching it. You can search it on Apple TV, Roku, and many, many, many other devices. So go to waypointtv.com and use it like a website, or find it at your App Store by searching Waypoint TV. And then I believe you're going to be very pleased at all the hunting and fishing content that you find on Waypoint TV. Now, we've got an incredible conversation with Joe Simonds from Salt Strong coming your way. Good to see you, Joe Simonds.
It's been too long.
I know.
Every year at ICAST, I get to see you though.
I know. Well, here we are at ICAST, and you were just saying this is the 4th year, and a lot has changed since you showed up here the first year.
A lot has changed with our audience. A lot has changed with our business model. And yeah, man, it's Luke and I were just reflecting and just how grateful we are. And kudos to you. We talked about you at dinner, and we're like, man, the one guy out of everyone when we first got started and had no real business plan, just knew we wanted to teach people fishing, was you that helped out. And like, you didn't really see us as a threat, and you're like, man, I just want to help these guys. They're doing something good. And so thank you.
Well, it's awesome to know that that actually went somewhere. I didn't do anything other than sit down with you and have lunch one day and maybe answer a couple of questions. But
well, that was a 4-hour lunch.
You
taught me a lot, man. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to do it. And man, have you guys really created something special? So a lot of people don't know what Salt Strong is, maybe. I say a lot of people don't know, not judging by your Facebook audience and what I can see. It seems like everybody knows what Salt Strong is, but for someone that doesn't know what it is, tell them, what is it?
Yeah, so
Maybe I don't know of everything that you're doing right now.
Yeah, you probably don't, because we've pivoted a lot. The one thing, the one mission, the mantra from day one has been teaching people how to catch fish. We started doing apparel. We've gone down a bunch of different avenues. But the one thing that's never changed is teaching people how to catch fish. All of our best memories growing up were around fishing. And we were very blessed that my dad and our grandfather, his father, loved fishing. That was just a big part of their lives. So all of our vacations were around fishing. It kept us out of a ton of trouble. And just looking back, when our grandfather passed away, we all went around and told stories. It was a great celebration. He lived to 93 years old. And the theme was all about fishing. It was about his little condo there in South Daytona and all the memories we created. And I'll tell you the coolest thing, we were in the financial services industry. I know you know that, but a lot of people don't. And we had a lot of momentum. We had a great company. We had really just an awesome thing going, making six figures as young people. And a lot of people thought we were crazy to leave, but we weren't very fulfilled in what we were doing. And when I started making calls, we made the decision to leave the business, to sell everything and start this company called Salt Strong. And I started making all these phone calls to my financial advisors who were my customers. And I had them literally in every single state except Hawaii. It was the only state I didn't really cover, but I literally was nationwide, had agents, financial advisors in every single state. As soon as I told them what I was doing, one, they're a little bit jealous because like, oh, you're going to go fishing for a living. But two, and this is where it really struck home, I still get goosebumps talking about it, every single one, no matter if they're in Chicago or Florida or Tennessee or New Mexico, had a fishing story. Every one of them. I could hear their excitement on the phone when they wanted to tell me their fishing story. And you could hear the memories and the smiles. And some of them hadn't told the story in 30 years. And it was, maybe they didn't even catch fish. It was something their grandfather fell off the boat and, got stung by a stingray. Like, it was something funny. I was like, man, like, we're not really in the fishing business. We're like in the memory creating business. And as soon as we got our arms around that, we're like, all right, well, what does that mean? Like, how do we scale it? And we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But to me, that's the most rewarding thing. And I'm sure you feel the same way when you hear someone that said, you know what, Tom, because of a tip or because of something I saw on your show or your YouTube channel, I went out and created a really cool experience and created memories with my kids. Like, that's what it's all about. The toughest part is, how do you create a business around that and to scale it?
Right.
And that's what we're trying to figure it out.
Let's hold up. Let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
So tell me about this. How old are you now?
39.
39.
Yeah.
And at what point did you decide that you were going to get out of this financial business?
That would have been 35.
Okay, so 35. So let's back up a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you end up in the financial business? What exactly was this financial business?
Sure. So that started right out of college.
Which was?
2001.
But what college?
Georgia Tech.
Okay, Georgia Tech. Good school.
Good school. I went to Tech, and I loved trading stocks. I was pretty good at it. I worked at AG Edwards. Like, my whole path was going to be a financial advisor. And when I worked at AG Edwards, I learned something that is a young buck, 23 years old out of college, that it was tough for me to, and I was down in Florida at the time, to be able to go get a white-haired person to give me $1 million, which is, you need $1 million customers as a financial advisor. And what I saw was all these wholesalers out there. They would come in and pitch their annuities or life insurance or variable annuities, mutual funds, whatever it is. And these guys were like doing really, really well in their mid-20s. They were getting to travel. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So I became a wholesaler. Long story short, I did not go down the path of being an advisor, became a wholesaler. And that just kept growing and growing and growing. But I remember very, very clearly where we were. We were at a conference in Chicago. And my brother and I were up in our hotel room. We were sharing a room. And at this point, my brother now joined us. And we were basically just schlepping annuities. Like, annuities and life insurance was kind of our niche. And I remember us talking, we're like, man, we hated like half of our customers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking like truly did not like them. Because just with any kind of business, but especially when you start talking about money, there's a lot of greed and there's a lot of bad people, right? I mean, Bernie Madoff, there's things like that happening all the time. And even though it's not on the same level, there was a lot of financial advisors, and I'm not trying to put them all in one corner, but there was a really big chunk of them that were not doing what's always right for the consumer. They were patting their pockets first. And we saw that all the time because we got to see the entire, picture. We got to see what the people actually had in terms of assets, what they really needed, and we got to see what the financial advisor would recommend.
So how old are you at this point when you and your brother are in this room talking about
This
this?
is at 35. Yeah, we
Okay.
were 34, 35, and we made a quick decision, and that's been one thing that I don't really stew on stuff too long. My dad was like that. When my dad decided to sell a house or move or buy a new truck or whatever it is, like he thought about it for a day or two and then just made it happen. And, kind of a failing forward mentality. And so we decided right then and there in the hotel room that, and it wasn't just because we didn't like our customers. It was, do we want to be doing this 5 years from now? Do we want to be doing this 15 years from now? And the answer was no. And we're like, well, if that's the case, and we're still fairly young, I mean, at 35 years old, why don't we create our ideal, company? And we had dreamed and talked about having a fishing company just because of the experiences our parents and grandparents created for us. But we had no stinking idea on how we would actually create a company and actually sell something. Because at the end of the day, if you ain't selling something, you're out of business.
So at this point, though, there's a couple more people to consider than just you and your brother on making this decision, right?
You're talking about my wife.
Uh-huh.
The most important one.
See, I know all this because I've got your book right here. And for people that may not know, people that are very familiar with Salt Strong, you may not know that Joe is also, in my opinion, quite accomplished author. And his book's called Fishing for Happiness. It's a red book that looks like it's got a smile made out of a fishing rod.
Yeah.
And it's the ultimate cheat sheet to achieving happiness and fulfillment from the top experts over the last 100 years. And what that means is that Joe read a lot of books.
Few hundred.
Yeah, a few hundred. And I've read a lot of the ones that you have in here. And I'm assuming that that's where we're getting to in this part of the story, that because I read your book cover to cover, and if you look at it, it's underlined and it's got notes in the margins, and it's really it was really profound. I really very much enjoyed it. We used it in our book club, and everybody else got a lot out of it as well, because a lot of the books that were mentioned we had already read or where they were already on the list. But where one of the parts of your book is you're having to go to your wife and talk about this. You're unhappy.
Yeah.
Right. And
not fulfilled. Yeah. But which is the same as unhappy.
Is it?
Well, to me, I was happy because we had a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like money was coming in. Like we never had the conversation, Tom, which a lot of couples do in their 30s, of can we afford that? I mean, right? I lived in a really big house on the golf course when I met my wife. Like we had everything that we needed, but looking back, I wasn't really happy. And that was when I was a little bit more overweight, drinking too much, like going down all these different paths, not going to church anymore, like all the stuff that I was doing when I didn't have any money, when I actually felt pretty good. Like I kept struggling finding, like, what is it? Like, what is going to make me happy? And the more I kept going down the same path, I found that I wasn't any happy.
So how are you? I find it very interesting when somebody finds himself in a situation where they're let's call it unhappy.
Yeah.
You're also calling it unfulfilled.
Yep.
You could call it being dissatisfied. You could call it being content. You could call, a lot of people have a very similar stomach ache.
Right.
That could be called a lot of different things. Some people just overwhelmingly call it depression. And so when you're feeling this way, is that what starts you down this path of reading hundreds of books and trying to determine if there's an answer out there for you?
You got it. That was it. And that was why I was reading.
Uh-huh.
And I did find that the more I read, and they were mostly self-help books,
Sure.
Out of those 300 or so books, the more that I read, and I read about money, about, faith in God and relationships, how to have a better relationship, how to be a better father. And the more I read and started hearing other people's stories and really their struggles too, because you learn a lot from people's struggles and mistakes, the more I did feel a little bit better about myself. But the one thing, and it's really the main cornerstone of the book, is just finding a mission, finding like a why, like where you do wake up every morning and it's like, why, like, what am I excited about doing? And for us, it kept coming back to that fishing. And like I told you, when I made those phone calls, that's the one thing I couldn't get out of my head. I was like, man, like if we can go out there and create memories Like, how cool of a legacy would that be for us,
All right, so
right?
tell me about you are starting to hone in on this thing that is fishing, and I'm sure along the path there's all kinds of other crazy rabbit trails that
Uh,
you could go down.
Distractions.
Yeah, distractions or whatever, but you and talking to your brother, you are kind of honing in on, you know what, it keeps coming back to fishing. We're I mean, are you thinking maybe I might be a fishing guide? Maybe like what are the paths that I can how can I be fulfilled? I know it's fishing, but how does it kind of manifest into something similar to what you're doing today?
Sure. So, the one thing that we really preached hard in the financial services industry was that riches are made in niches. And a good example is Amazon. A lot of younger people might not know this, but Amazon at one point was the world's largest online bookstore. That's all they sold was books. And then they take those same systems and processes, and then they went into shoes. A lot of people don't know that that was one of the next big things was they ended up buying Zappos, and like shoes was a really big piece of Amazon. But Jeff Bezos from day one knew that, he was going to be the everything. They already trademarked the everything store like 10 years before it really became the everything store. So they had a plan. And so for us, I tell you that because we knew we wanted to do something in a niche. And we actually bought Fish Strong and Salt Strong the same day, like really in the same month. And we paid a whole lot more for Fish Strong because it was already an established site, like 10x times, and actually 1,000 times more. Because saltstrong.com was available on GoDaddy for $10. And so we knew we wanted to do something in saltwater. So that's step number one. Like, all right, we're going to do something in saltwater. To niche it down even more, we knew we wanted to do something in inshore fishing because that's what we had been doing the last 15 years of our life. That was what we were good at. And we knew we could teach that and impact some people. And there's a lot of people that are frustrated. As weekend warriors, it's not that easy. If you're not out on the water, if you don't have a network of guides, it's tough to know where the bait is. It's tough to know what's working now. Like, man, if we can just help those people, it's a start. But to answer your question, the most confusing part and the most frustrating part for us was how do we turn this into a business? And I think you were probably, after you met with me, you probably went home and said the same thing. Like, man, these guys they got energy, they're smart, but how the heck are they going to make money at
Yeah,
this?
well, that's a lot of people's issue with the outdoors. Even if it's guiding, it's kind of like, okay, I know enough to catch some fish, but how am I going to get customers to come here? That is a path that has a roadmap to it. Like there's lots of fishing guides. You can go talk to them, and there's lots of you can do a lot of research online. But you really created something that didn't exist before. But before we get to how you created something that didn't exist before, in your book, you had a very interesting chapter on how you took this to your wife, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But there was a part in that book, and I can't find it just by flipping through. But there was a part in that book where basically, if I remember correctly, and maybe I don't, it's been a while since I read it. But you wrote a bunch of stuff down, and she wrote a bunch of stuff down. There was a period of time in between that where you come back together and compare them. Tell me about that.
So my buddy Jason Wink had given me these 16 questions, and it's really just I guess I don't remember the name of it. I called it the Something Questionnaire. You might even know the title better, but he got it from someone else. And it's essentially you're writing down if there's no limitations to what your dream world looks like. And that's everything from writing down your dream house. How many, like, and being really specific, how many bedrooms? Is it a mountain view? Is it on the water? Is it on a golf course if you're a golfer? Does it have a boat ramp if you're into fishing? And literally you're just outlining and putting in writing, which is really important, your dream. Like if there was literally no limitations on anything, what does your life look like? And then it goes into to even your daily routines. What time are you waking up? Who are you having breakfast with? Who are you having lunch with? How long are you working? Are you traveling? And you're literally just writing out like the blueprint of your perfect life. And so my wife and I both, I actually went down to my basement. My wife was upstairs. And I really remember this one because I was sweating it because I finished first. And I was like, gosh, I hope our answers, line up. And right now we're in Lawrenceville, Georgia. I wanted to be on the water big time. And it turns out so did she, which was awesome. And long story short, our answers were pretty similar. Not like scary similar where they're the same, but they were really, really similar. And we both looked at it and we said, all right, Lauren, your answers are similar to mine. And However, the answers we wrote down are not even remotely similar to how we're living our lives right now. And that was the aha moment. We're like, just like my brother and I in the hotel room, if we don't want to be doing this 10, 15 years from now, why do we think things are just going to magically change if we keep going down the same path? And so we made a pact to move. And I don't remember if it was 12 or 18 months. We gave ourselves enough time, and we cut it in half. It was all of a sudden like, if we're going to do this, let's just do it now. There's never going to be a perfect time. And you know that, and you're probably teaching your kids this. There's never a perfect time to get married. There's never a perfect time to have kids or even quit your job and pursue something that's going to make you fulfilled. You got to do it, because the right time is never going to happen.
Now, tell me the difference between, even before we know what I have you describe what this is that you created. Tell me the difference between living in a state of, you called it unfulfilled, unhappiness, discontent, it maybe even unsure, maybe even just overall just unhappy with kind of, and not realizing it, but finally identifying it. Okay. So you've lived like that for quite some time, made a lot of money, lots of things are going well, but you're not everything is going well. So tell me the difference between living there, fast forward to today, before we even know what it is that you've created. Tell me the difference in the way that it has affected your overall well-being.
Sure. I mean, that's kind of a broad and loaded question, but in terms of for me, like a big part was just that mission, like figuring out that why, like why do I think I'm here on this earth? And the answer is different for everyone. And I had never even really thought about that until I started reading those books. And I think a lot of people don't, you kind of do what society tells you to do, go get a job, work your way up the ladder, get a nice house in the suburbs, get married and have kids. And I was doing all that stuff. And yet I kept looking back saying, this is not how I thought I would feel. This is not how I thought it would be. Like, there's got to be more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I was literally like, in terms of a resume, I had married my dream girl. We had 2 little beautiful girls at the time. They were healthy. We lived in a house. We had no debt. I mean, we had literally 0 debt. Everything's paid for. And yet I still wasn't waking up like truly fulfilled. And then when we did that questionnaire, I was like, well, holy smokes, like there's so much more out there. We're here at point A. We want to get to point B. Let's start getting there as quick as possible. Now, your question was like, how did that make us feel? Well, once again, feelings are really tough to describe, but I wake up with more energy. I wake up like knowing we're making a massive difference, and it happens to be in the fishing world. Everyone's going to be completely different. But one book I read was Phil Knight's book, the founder of Nike.
Yep.
And he started that, I was born in the late 70s, and he was already making things happen around then. And jogging was not cool in the 70s. It was new. And it sounds crazy today, but they had a dream, and they believed that if they could get a pair of tennis shoes or jogging shoes on every person in America, the world would be a better place. They'd be more fit. They would be more active doing stuff. And people thought they were nuts, right? Think how silly that sounds now. They thought we were nuts. And we believe, and this was a big part of our why that we did establish day one, that if every person in America, especially kids, if every kid had the opportunity to fish, we truly believe the world would be a better place. They would respect the nature. They would be more conservation minded if they've actually been out there and seen it. They would understand, hey, why is this trash and this plastic in our waters? And not all of them are going to be hardcore fishermen, but we truly believe if every kid at least had the opportunity to fish, the world would be a better place. And so that's our big why. That's the big movement we're slowly trying to get to. Will we ever make sure that every kid in America or even the world has a chance to fish? I don't know, but we're going to give our best to do it.
That's awesome. And so that's your why, and having the why is so important. The how is not important. The what, in fact, is not important. It is the strength of someone's why that really makes a difference on not only whether you're successful or not, but whether or not you have the energy to pursue it, whether or not you choose to follow through, whether or not, I mean, it's all about the why. That's what it all boils down to, is the why. I think a lot of people are living without a strong why. Things are going well. You're a great example. Things are going well for you, but really the why is not there. Like, why do you need to make more money? What is this accomplishing? So let's talk about how this materialized into something similar to what it is today, because in just watching from the outside and talking to you, your path on Salt Strong has pivoted, it has changed, it has gone 180 degrees, and so today it's very different than in the beginning. But in the beginning, like you and Luke, your brother, you've kind of set your life up to where this is happening and you are moving in this direction. What does that what does that look like at the beginning? Because I'm sure it's kitchen tables and yellow notepads and laptops, and what is that?
Well, I think hopefully a takeaway for your listeners is, regardless if it's in the fishing world or not, or even the outdoor industry.
Yeah, really, that doesn't even make
It
any
doesn't.
difference about my interest in. We know each other because of fishing, but my interest in having you on the podcast really has to do with first of all, a lot of people consider being unhappy, like being destitute and being homeless and being, everything fell apart. You're a great example of just being unsatisfied. Things are going great. The plan that you made at 25 has actually come true, but you have reached these pinnacles and you're going, man, I thought it was going to be a lot better than this, right? A lot of people have that. And a lot of people, there's a certain percentage of people that at 35, they are just relegated to, well, I guess I'm just going to hate work for the rest of my life, but at least I'll be on the golf course this weekend, you know, and that might turn into a lot of drinking, and that might turn into a lot of other ways of handling that discontent. But in your situation, you have no debt. I mean, you're living the American dream, but you're discontent. That really is the most interesting thing. The fact that you did it about fishing is interesting, and I'm glad you did. You're providing a great service to the fishing industry, which is close to my heart. But I find that story of just deciding this, I'm not doing this anymore. I feel like that's really my interest in this deal.
Yeah. Well, I guess to go back to your question, the first thing that we wanted to do, because we didn't really have a plan, was to be helpful.
Yeah.
My brother and I looked at it and were like, all right, we know the niche that we want to go down, but what's the one thing everyone has to have is a fisherman in our case, and it was knots. You need it. And my brother's an engineer. I'm more the marketing and the idea guy about how to get it out there and promote it. And I was like, let's start filming knot videos, and then let's start testing them against each other with just little, small pulleys that measure the strength of the knot and when they're breaking. And we kept posting that and realized people liked it. And I think so. Number one is to be helpful, create something helpful out there. And my brother and I both remember who taught us our first knots. It happened to be my uncle and our dad, and people remember that. And so, like, how cool would it be if 10 years from now, there's all these people out there that remember that Salt Strong taught them these knots? So we didn't make any money off that, but we were just being helpful. And for the first 6 months, all we did was create YouTube videos. And we put them on YouTube for free, and we put them on our blog for free, started just growing a little small email list, and then started asking the question, what do you guys want next? What do you need help with? I mean, that's the most, number one, be helpful. Number two is create a small community, even if it's 10 people, and just ask them, like, what do you guys need help with? What are you frustrated with in this, specific niche? In our case, it was inshore fishing, and we got a lot of feedback. And so we started doing more content and then growing the audience and then listening. And every time we didn't listen, we regretted it. And every time we did, we got amazing feedback of people saying, here's what I want. And then just to kind of give you the progress of how the company grew, at this point, we're 6 months in, we had not made a single penny. We had spent a lot, starting a business from scratch, even though it was all online based, it still cost money. And we weren't paying ourselves. So it's one thing to tell your spouse that, hey, I'm going to possibly go a year, and you're thinking a year is the worst case without any income. And it's the second thing to actually do it and live it. And then we have a third kid, which adds a whole another complexity and more bills. And it was really, really tough. So like we had like this another eureka moment. All right, Luke, here we are. We have a pretty cool audience. We got some momentum. People like you have been helpful. People are like asking to help out. Like, we got to sell something. And thank goodness people actually liked the logo.
Yeah.
At least they said they did. And they're like, hey, we kind of like to see a shirt or a hat. And so we started going down that route. But that was another one that I don't know if you know the whole story, but we did that for about a year and a half, 2 years. And we literally got out of the apparel industry because it kept going back to the why. We didn't get in this to be an apparel industry, and we now found ourselves not fishing anymore because we were running a stinking apparel industry or apparel company, and we had $100,000 worth of inventory out there at any given time. Had to hire an employee, then another employee just to do the customer service stuff, and we're like, this is brutal again. And
So let me ask you that. That's exactly where I was going to go with that. Is with your experience, are you seeing, man, we're going down exactly the same road that we were on? This apparel company is working. People like it. We are selling it. But again, we're going to end up unhappy, unfulfilled.
It all went back to the why.
And you make a conscious decision. Okay, we got to get back to this other thing that's making no money. Right? I mean, ultimately that's what it is. It's like, okay, we have found a path of little resistance that we're going down. Money's coming in. Yeah, we don't want to do that. Right? That's a tough decision.
It was a really tough decision.
And then what did that do for you? That opens up time to do what?
To teach, which is what we ultimately want to do. And so we had two parts of the company, and apparel, for those of you not watching and listening on the podcast, apparel was up here, and we were hitting $55,000, $60,000 a month in apparel. That's a lot of money to say. We literally cut the cord and said no, pretty much overnight. We gave 30 days to sell off our excess inventory, and we literally lost like $55,000 a month. That's a lot. That paid a lot of bills, even though there's cost of goods and all that stuff, but it paid a lot of bills. But beneath that, which was actually growing because we had kind of proven the point, were these online fishing courses and our little fishing club, where we were showing spots, but more in particular, sharing trends on here's why this is working. Because, a redfish is a redfish is a redfish, regardless if it's in Texas or Florida. They still have the same biology. They still feed and behave similarly. So we're like, that's where we want to focus on. And that was the toughest call. That was even, I think, to me, that was tougher than even leaving our old job, just because it was the most riskiest thing that we could, we're literally going to implode Salt Strong. It's going to be gone tomorrow. Or
at this point, do you have employees?
Well, we had this too. We had to let them go. I know. Actually, everything always works out for a reason. And it turned out her name was Samantha, and she was awesome. And she really kind of quit before we could even let her, because she saw what was happening and kind of knew. And she ended up getting a job offer from her old boss for double what they were paying her. A new position opened up, so she ended up making double. She's happy as can be, and it worked out awesome. And so, and then we went back to doing what we wanted to do with really low overhead again. We got rid of all that excess stuff and started over with just the two of us, and said, let's just build this up the right way. And now here we are, doing similar numbers with less overhead, and ultimately just more joy and satisfaction from us. And going back to the why, which is, creating memories for people, that we're not in the fishing business, we're in the memory creating business. And every time we focus on that, we end up finding that usually the right doors open. We actually are making decent money now. It's profitable, finally. And that's 3.5 years later. But that's the toughest part. I mean, I think like anything, if you can get past the first 18 or 24 months and add value, be helpful, and listen to the audience, find out what they want, and then make it for them, build it for them, whether it be a product or a service or a fishing club like ours, build it for them.
So this isn't just luck that this happens, and it isn't just persistence that you keep trying to find this success, because honestly, you found the success, you cut it off right away. But in order to do that, you have to have some skills. From what I can tell, you or someone is really good at a lot of the computer side of this business. Is that you?
Well, no, I don't know the first thing about making a website, but marketing, if that's social media marketing and basically promoting and getting traffic to a website, that is one thing that we did really well in the financial services industry. And then we took, here's how important I think that is, especially for kids these days. If you can learn how to really, it's marketing and then salesmanship. You always have a job, because we took the same skills that we're using in the financial services and literally applied them. And we did the same blog style. We used the same WordPress platform. We literally copied what we had there, and it worked. But you still have to be helpful, and you have to listen to what people want and not just do what you want to do.
Well, I think a big part of why people are drawn to you and Salt Strong and Luke is because you're very authentic. And that can be perceived in a lot of different ways. Authentic can mean, a guy that spends 300 days on the water, right? Talking about what he talks about. Authentic can also mean, hey, we are not guides that spend 300 days on the water. We're just like you. And that has been a real winning combination for you guys.
You got it. I mean, our main marketing video that attracts people in is just that. We it's funny, it's not a public one, but it's one that, if you follow us, you could probably get retargeted through Facebook and stuff, but it's literally us, my brother and I, talking about our failures, showing a picture of my brother literally has a second bedroom still to this day of tackle and lures. He was just like how in my book I talk about chasing the wrong things, hoping it's going to help make me happier. So many fishermen do that. They think they need to go buy all this tackle and equipment, and there's nothing against tackle and equipment, but if you just keep buying all the same stuff and just getting more and accumulating more, that doesn't mean you're just going to catch more fish. You still need to study the biology of the fish. You need to be out in the water. And I mean, you could have a 6-figure flats boat and the nicest rods and reels and even the liveliest live bait, and if you're in a dead zone, you ain't going to catch fish. And we just talk about that. We kind of beat ourselves up a little bit, and we talk about that. For years, for a decade, we went to the same handful of spots. And if we got to a spot and someone was in there, we were like a lost kid at Disney. And people, to your point, they think it's, hey, that sounds like me. I get it. Versus us just saying, oh, we're the best. We catch fish every time we go. That's not true. We're slowly and surely getting better every day, just like we hope our audience members do. And when we go to an area that we're not even remotely good at, like grouper fishing, we go hire a good grouper guide, like Dylan Hubbard, who we got on board, who is, and his family's been on the water for 91 years out of Hubbard's Marina. And we don't ever want to go pretend that we're the best at that. But I think I like to use the term like Oprah Winfrey, right? Oprah is not really an expert at anything, but she's bringing in all the right people who are the experts. And we're trying to slowly but surely do that in the fishing world, so that we can ultimately go out there and create more memories and more experiences for people.
Tell me this. It's interesting you talk about Dylan Hubbard there. 91 years as his family's out there. You've got a guy that buys a house nearby. He has plenty of money. He buys a boat. In a lot of cases, the last person he wants to go talk to is that guy. Because even if you've never met it, I don't know, Dylan, but you're saying 91 years. He is a lot of history there. It's an intimidating kind of thing for somebody that just might have moved into town. I mean, for some people it's not, but for some people it is. It's like, man, I want to go anywhere that guy's not, because what if he yells at me? What if he laughs at me? Why would he want to go take me to a place that I'm going to go again, right? So tell me, how do you ever talk about that with your people? Of how do you approach one of these guys? You say if I want to learn how to grouper fish, I just hire a grouper guide. Well, there's a method to doing that is above board. There is a method to doing that which is really low down and dirty. And what's the difference between the two in your opinion? Because that guy's livelihood relies on his spots, and he is booked today and tomorrow and the next day. He doesn't care if it's the weekend. What's the difference between the low down dirty approach to get that knowledge and the above board approach, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, you already said the low down dirty is, and they make, on those charters, especially when you're going off to someone's spots they've worked really hard to get, is to, to keep your phone to your Navionics app or whatever on and be tracking it. And it's really dirty, and it happens. The right way to do it is just like they did, is to get the knowledge. And we're trying to give people shortcuts. And that's our whole goal, is to get you from point A to point B as quick as possible without having to be on the water 300 days a year. And I mean, it comes down to me to the one word, is trends. Because once you can start getting the trends, you can start predicting a little bit better. You're never going to be perfect. But if you know that because you've studied the trends that a redfish should be here because of this tide and this is the temperature and they're looking for this kind of water and here's where the bait is, eventually you're going to get better and be able to replicate that in multiple places and not have to go back to the same 3 or 4 spots over and over and over again. That's what people do, right?
But what if somebody's really super interested and they want to get your course and they're going to do that, but they also want to hire this guy? How do you approach that person and tell them what you're trying to do?
Well, we're a little bit different because we're not like hands-on on the phone. I mean, we're trying to do something.
No, I know, but just say you're like what I'm getting at is like, the low down dirty is exactly what you said, being covert and
Stealing.
hiding this
Yeah.
this phone that's tracking the movements, and then you fully intend to go back there.
Yes.
Where I had people do that. Now, we didn't have cell phones when people were doing this.
Yeah.
We had actual GPSs, and this guy insists on bringing this bag, and he leaves it out on the deck, and then I hear this beeping, and I'm like, "What's in the bag there?" And nothing. And so finally he opens it up, and I'm like, "Is that a GPS? I mean, do you really think that's okay?" Because
Seriously.
had you have come to me and say, "Hey, listen, I just moved down here. I've got a boat. I'm trying to learn my way around.
Yeah.
Could you help me?" There were tons of places that I could have taken him that I would have been happy to teach him
Yes.
every single thing about that.
Yep.
But that's not how he chose to go about it.
Yeah.
So at that point, charter's over and we're going back, and it wasn't a good experience for either one of us.
Yep.
He didn't learn many spots. I was very upset because of this lack of trust and just this underhanded, slimy way that he went about trying to do this.
Yeah.
Whereas I had many other people call, "Hey man, I've gone out there, I've run aground 15 times. My wife is super pissed because we're trying to make it out to Snipe Keys. We can't get there. I've hit 2 coral heads. I've run aground twice. It's cost me $20,000 in repairs.
Yep.
I just want to go out and catch a fish. Can you help me? I'm happy to book you." Right?
And
And the difference between those two situations is monumental.
Yeah.
Now you have a guide that is your friend that wants to fish with you more.
Yep.
And gradually will develop trust and gradually will take you to the best places and show you why these are the best places and
Right.
explain them to you so that you can go out and find your own best
which
places.
is all about the trends. So,
Exactly.
So like, and you're right. Most, not all, but the vast majority of guides and charter captains truly are helpful. They want to be helpful. They don't necessarily want to show you their best spots, but they want you to go
Not
out
first.
there. Exactly. But even like, let's just take Peter Deeks or C. Richardson. Those are 2 other guys that are on our team, if you will. And that was a big issue they had is, are we going to be filming in my best spots? No, but take us to a good spot and we'll take the drone up and you literally like dissect it and talk about why this is a good spot. And most of them have no problem doing that, especially if it's a public spot that's out in the open. But to get up on the drone and actually point it out and say, "Here's why. Do you see this? This is structure right here. Here's what time of year this is going to be a good spot. Here's how you can replicate this anywhere." Like with
Right.
CA, we actually took a spot in St. Pete, showed it on the map, get on Google Maps and showed it, and then went and found another spot in Texas, a whole different state that looked really, really similar, and says, "Look, this is identical. It's the same little peninsula. It's the same water's going to be cutting the same way. It's got a little grass there as far as you could tell. You could literally replicate that same kind of spot anywhere."
That's interesting because you take a guy like CA, and CA is a teacher. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He is a very natural teacher. He enjoys teaching, but that doesn't mean that if you book him for the first time, you move into town, you get a house near his, you buy a boat similar to his, that you're going to book him and he's going to take you out and show you and let you leave a trail of breadcrumbs to this spot, right? And then he's going to teach you all of these different ways and the reasons why this is a good spot and all of that. That may take fishing with him for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Not to mention that you can't just fish with him anytime you want to. He's a guide that's in high demand. So maybe you're getting 2 or 3 days. So now that 2 or 3 years is now a 10-year relationship. And then he might take you some of his best spots and really show you, because he trusts that you're not going to exploit these spots, that you're not going to become a guide overnight, that you're not going to do all these different things. But your course is allowing that to happen in a very, very short time.
You got it.
And so that's really the effectiveness of the online course, I guess, is that CA's trusting you as the producer of these things, that you're not going to exploit him and his spots and provide GPS locations to all of these spots, I'm assuming, but you are going, and really for him as a guide, he is also at that point taking control of the situation, saying, okay, if I'm going to teach, somebody's going to teach these people.
Right.
So let's teach them the most ethical way to enter these spots, the most why you want to not leave prop scars, why you want to fish it in this way versus a different way. And that's a pretty interesting thing, because now he is going to encounter these people on the water.
Yeah.
But they are going to be operating in a way that he prefers them to operate.
And just having more fun, right? I mean, you as someone who has a fishing company, we all want people to go out there and enjoy their time. If they're going out and getting skunked every time, eventually they're going to stop buying fishing licenses. They're going to stop investing in new tackle and rods and reels and boats and kayaks. I mean, we want people to go out and have fun, especially that next generation. I mean, these phones, and I haven't played any of these video games in 12 or 15 years now, but I've seen them and they're so realistic, it's scary. And now with virtual reality, like if this next generation is not out there fishing and having a good time doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like none of us are going to have jobs in 20 years.
You're
from
exactly
now,
right. I'm just laughing when you're saying this, and this could have even been on Salt Strong. It might be on Cook Slams or one of the other funny accounts that I follow. But there was this fat kid sitting on the beach with VR glasses on, and I just thought that was the funniest thing that I'd ever seen. I'm like, dude, take the glasses off. I mean, like it's reality, and it's pretty awesome. And you see a kid out there with virtual reality glasses on the beach with his shirt off, like just hanging out. And that is the road that we're trying to get people not to go down. And the when I think about your mission and your purpose, your why that we've talked about, to try to get every kid to have the opportunity to fish.
That's it.
Like you say, that doesn't mean that every kid will become a fisherman.
Right.
That doesn't mean even that every kid is going to like fishing.
Yep.
It may mean that that's the one and only time that they go. But you know what? On the way to going fishing, you might have walked down a trail. They may have never walked down a trail in the woods before and said, the fishing part sucked. But I poked my finger, I got the line wrapped around my foot, and I fell in the water.
Yep.
But what was really cool is I really liked walking on that trail, and I'm going to walk on that trail more. And I had no idea that there were fish in there. And you always talk about, or it is always spoken about, that ignorance is indifference, right? So if you don't know that these fish live in the water, you don't know that this is an important, interesting thing to do, there's absolutely no reason for you to be interested in protecting it, right?
Got it. Yep.
So that's where you bring the conservation back into it. What is Salt Strong doing for conservation?
Well, it's also a really tough question, and we get that a lot now. And I mean, we're doing everything that we can. I mean, we literally just became profitable. And I think what I hate more than anything, like we had a guy recently and he was like, well, you guys are part of the problem. You're just teaching people how to go out there and catch fish. And you're not donating like Coast or Guy Harvey. I was like, Coast and Guy Harvey have been around for 30 plus years. Like we're in our third year. Like we don't have the funds, because the only thing that you can really do to help conservation is time or money. And we're kind of scarce on both right now, but we're trying to do our best to become more profitable, to give back more. But because we have such a big audience, and even our podcast, we're just trying to interview as many people as we can, get the word out there. I mean, the Captains for Clean Water, we had them on the podcast, and I actually spoke to Andrew here. Andrew, right?
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel, and told him, hey, we have 65,000 people every week just on our little newsletter. I was like, man, we'll put it in the next, just helping out any way we can.
Yeah. See, I don't fully agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with that at all. That your responsibility as a company is to provide financial means to give back 1%. Your Salt Strong giving back 1% or SE Multimedia giving back 1% is a tiny drop in the bucket to what you can do to help with education, to help with bringing attention to what Daniel and Chris Whitman and Captains for Clean Water and Bull Sugar and these other organizations, those are the people that are at the tip of the spear. Those are the people. We are absolutely not conservation leaders in any. I would never say that, because I haven't quit my job and dedicated my life to this like Daniel and Chris and all these other people are. But what I can do is in operating my business well, and what you can do in operating your business well, is you have an audience that those people do not have.
Yeah.
And if you can educate those people on what they are doing, I find that is far better than 1% of your income, which right now is not much. And
Right.
where would it go?
Exactly.
Where are you going to put it?
I
Are you
know.
going to be some like I never really like it when I go to Whole Foods or someplace and it's like, you want to give 10% to the Whole Planet Foundation? I don't even know what the Whole Planet Foundation does. Why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
Like, I want to give money to where it's going to be effective and make a difference. And right now, if I were to give money, I'd give it to Cabinets for Clean Water.
Yeah.
But what can I do that's even greater than money? Or can I do both? Can I give money and can I do something else? And using these platforms like your podcast, my podcast, our social media accounts to bring attention to the real problem, bring attention to giving people resources where they can actually go and become educated on these things. I think that's the most important thing that we can do.
Yeah, that's what we'll be doing for the foreseeable future. I mean, we're not a conservation company. Not to say we're not for it, but just like you guys, I mean, it's there's only so much we can do.
But conservation has to become, just like you're saying, we're not an apparel company, but for apparel companies in fishing to flourish in 10 years, there have to be people that are 20 years younger than us that are getting interested in fishing that will buy stuff in the future. And that's where I think that you're doing a really good job. Not only are you teaching kids how to fish, but you're teaching people, older people how to fish, which may even be more important, honestly, because how is a kid going to go fishing if someone doesn't take them?
You got it.
I mean, in Florida, like a lot of kids live in Florida, and you can walk down to the end of the road, and there's some opportunity to throw a line in the water. But that's not the case all over the country.
No, definitely not.
And a lot of kids really need someone to take them. And in a lot of cases, you got a single parent or somebody that didn't grow up fishing, and all of a sudden their kid's watching one of the YouTube stars on YouTube, and he's like, I'd like to go fishing.
Yeah.
Have you ever been fishing? And there's this moment of intimidation of, no, we can go to the aquarium,
right?
Or we can do this or we can do that, but I don't think we're going to go fishing because I don't know where to go. I don't know anything about it. I don't have any equipment. There's that period. There's that point of intimidation, and I think that for the fishing industry to really flourish and to bring in a lot of new anglers, we have to figure out a way to get past that to where somebody has a resource to go, and that's my opinion, that's Salt Strong.
That's what we're trying to do. And another big thing that I meant to tell earlier that we're really, really like hitting hard is, if you're going to go have more fun, it can't be just about the spot. Like, we were talking about stealing spots or doing it the wrong way. And to me, and I'm sure you agree, a big part of just the thrill of fishing is going out and finding new spots. Like, to me, that's the coolest thing, to go to a brand new spot that you researched yourself on, now using online maps, and you actually caught a nice fish there.
And
like,
that worked.
Man, that is awesome.
Yeah,
and that's the most rewarding part. And so even in our fishing club, so Luke and myself cover the west coast of Florida, and then Tony is the east coast. He's now one of our employees today. And every week we go to a brand new spot, a spot we have never fished before. And we film everything from the launch, if we're launching a boat or if it's a kayak launch. So they get to see exactly with a GoPro, real time, here's what's happening. We show where we saw fish, where we caught fish, where we missed fish. Like, it's not like a TV show. Nothing against TV shows were a big production. It's just us with a GoPro and like literally screwing up, getting sometimes brought into mangroves and like falling off the paddleboard. I mean, we literally show everything. So it's kind of like a mini show, but you get to see everything. And hey, if you want to go to this same spot, great. If you want to go replicate it somewhere else, awesome. But I think that's such a thrill of fishing, is going out and trying new spots and not being stuck on the same handful.
But in order to get there, still you have to overcome that intimidation to get out there the first time.
Absolutely.
To get out there the first handful of times to where you feel comfortable. Well, I've never seen this on Salt Strong, and there's a boat ramp right over there, and looks good.
Yeah,
there has to be a stair-step approach to having a good experience, learning a few things, having fun.
Yes,
and then realizing and developing enough confidence to realize that hey, maybe I can do this on my own
Yeah.
a little bit, and maybe maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. What's the worst thing that's going to happen,
Right.
right? And
Yep.
that's cool. Well, I think that I think what you've created is awesome. I want to finish up with. I know you got a hard stop. You got to go, but I want to finish up with a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I want you to outline exactly how somebody gets to Salt Strong in every way, shape, and form, because you have a lot of different platforms and a lot of different levels and layers to what you do.
Yeah.
So quickly go through that, and then I have a couple of interesting questions for you. I'm excited to know what your response is
All
going
right,
to
cool.
be.
Well, I'll make it real easy. Saltstrong.com is the main place. So saltstrong.com, you can find everything. But Facebook is, I would say, that's kind of our bread and butter in terms of social media, where we have a group that's 51,000 as of we're filming this.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a private Facebook group called Salt Strong Fishing Tribe. So
How
if
do
you're
you get in there?
just apply. You're not in it? Come on,
Well,
Tom.
I think I might be, but I don't really do Facebook that much. I don't know. If I didn't have to do social media, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, I understand.
But
I personally, I spend more time on Instagram because I
do
like.
too. That's my favorite. Do you have a private Instagram? I'll be in that.
We don't, because they don't really have the groups.
I know.
So
you need to.
what I
maybe you
love,
can do a third party solution.
I would love to, because I mean, it is so important to have a community, and we don't. Actually, this is another really cool tip for someone starting a business or starting some kind of movement. So when we got into Facebook, we realized that there was a problem in the Facebook communities. There was a ton of Facebook groups for fishing. And we were a part of like 80 of them, like just to see what was out there. And the trend that I kept seeing was just so much negativity, so many keyboard police, so much cursing, and just it was just downright dirty. I mean, people putting really inappropriate pictures. And I was like, there's not a clean fishing group. And my brother was against it. My brother's not even on it. He's literally like anti-social media. He's on Facebook because we have to be because of the community, but he's like, this is dumb. I was like, Luke, here's the deal. We're going to be the first fishing community where we do not allow cursing. No warnings. Literally, you're booted out.
Really?
And it caught on. And like we had people leaving us. This was hilarious. So what helped grow it is we would kick people out, like really negative people that we don't want to do business with anyways. And then they would go to all these other groups that we were part of because we could see their posts saying, screw Salt Strong. They're a bunch of Bible beaters. They won't even let you curse in there. And so these other guys who are all see the problem, like, well, like I don't want to. I'm embarrassed if my wife or my kids or my boss comes behind me and I'm seeing all these inappropriate pictures and cursing. Like,
right.
So that started attracting more people to it. And the whole thing just started growing. So it started off with 1,000 people. We were high-fiving that we got to 1,000, and now it's 51,000, people today.
That's amazing.
And you have to apply. Like it's private only. So you have to answer a couple questions, and you don't follow the rules, which includes cursing, putting bad advertisements or just smut on there, then you're gone.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool. So that's, long story short, saltstrong.com, that's the other place where kind of our community exists. And then if you want to go up to the next level, it's all there on saltstrong.com, which is our fishing club and some of our courses with people like CA and Peter Deeks.
And those are right there. You can just go buy the course. What does the course cost?
I'm glad you asked. It's anywhere from $50, I think like 47, some of the lowest, all the way to. We did one with Peter Miller, and it was like literally the same trolling tactics that they used to make millions. Like you could actually go make money in tournaments for trolling and his kite fishing, and that one's 200. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you can afford to go out offshore fishing for sailfish, I mean $200, that's not even a tank of gas.
It's not your bait. I mean, the bait costs more.
Absolutely, and some of the less expensive ones like wade fishing. That anybody can do. We want people to get out there, but at the same point, we're still running a business and have to pay these pros and just want to give them an awesome experience.
Do people tell you that they think it's worth it?
Oh yeah. We get about 1% of people refund actually.
What about here walking around ICAST? Did you run into anybody that had taken a course and had given you some feedback?
You got it. Tons. And to me, that's the most rewarding part because and this is a funny one. My dad, who was in his mid 60s, and he didn't really get this whole model about being online. And he's like, well, Joe, like we have a redfish course, which is one of our top selling courses. He's like, well, isn't all that stuff on there on YouTube? was like, it probably is, Dad. But I was like, here's what you don't think about. Let's just say you are that guy who just moves down to Florida. You want to go out and catch redfish. And I use this example. If you go on YouTube right now, I just did this recently, and type in how to catch redfish, it's like 187,000 videos come up.
Yeah.
187,000. And
among those, there is a good one.
Absolutely. There's plenty of good ones.
But you may not be able to find it in your 30 minutes that you're trying to learn how to catch redfish.
I watched the first 3, and the first one that pops up is not ours. We're one of the top 5, but one of the very first ones is like 27 minutes long. And it's these 2 guys from Texas, and it's not good. It just, they happen to be one of the first people to post a redfish video way back in YouTube, and YouTube still keeps it up there. And then if you watch the second one, it's counterintuitive what the first one tells you. So like, if you watch the first 5, you would end up being more confused and lost than had you just gone out there and tried it yourself. So we try to shorten that curve, take out all the fluff. There's no advertisements, and just say, you're at point A, you want to become more consistent at catching redfish, spend $50 and get from point A to point B quicker and not have to sift through. I did the math. If the average video on just that redfish example was 5 minutes, it would take you like 2.2 years if all you did 24 hours a day was watch videos on redfish. 2.2 years.
Wow.
So we're just trying, for the guy who really wants to go out there, if you're young and you're 20 and you have plenty of time, it's probably not the best fit for you. But if you're someone who actually knows the value of your time and you don't want to sift through hours and hours of stuff to figure out one tip, it's an awesome investment. And it's a money back guarantee. Like I said, 1% of people do refund, and some are just jerks, and some truly do know everything, I guess. But we don't ask any questions and give it back. So
okay,
yeah.
Well, that's good, man.
Yeah.
Well, we had talked about doing one on fly casting or fly fishing for bonefish or fly fishing for permit or something. I personally think that the fly fishing for bonefish is a smaller audience, and if I were to do one with you, I would just do one on overall fly fishing or fly casting, wading on a boat with trees behind you, all in the wind.
Yes.
All of these different situations, because I think I just talked to CA about this. And the whole purpose of doing it is to, we don't have a lot of time. And I can give one person a casting lesson and I could write an article on casting or whatever. But the amount of time that I can put towards that, I'd like to see that help as many people as possible.
We're the platform to scale it is what we're trying to do.
And so, I can choose to spend those 3 hours teaching 10 people or teaching 50 people, or maybe it gets out to 2,000 people or 5,000 people or whatever. So I don't know. I guess if you want to see me do a fly casting thing with Salt Strong, send me an email at the podcast at Saltwater Experience, and I'll consider it. It's not even being a consideration. It's trying to make the time to do it in the schedule, and I definitely want to do it. So that's how to get to Salt Strong. Yep. Joe is a guy that I have a lot of respect for, because he has you just heard his story. He was doing great, discontent, and made a conscious decision to take risks and to do things outside of the norm, to take not just take the path less traveled, to take the path where there is no path and create this path. And lucky for us in the fishing industry that you've been able to do that in a way that is benefiting a lot of people. And I think when you're giving back and you're benefiting and you're helping people, of course, you're on the same page here. But when you are helping people, you just feel better about yourself. Oh, yeah. You really do. And especially when you're walking around that show and people are coming up to you and saying, man, I took your course, never caught a redfish before, and I caught 15 the first day I was out there. It's unbelievable. Even just one. Yeah. And then when they go teach their kid that, like you talked about earlier about that parent, because if the parents aren't doing it, if they're not having fun, if they're not confident, they're not going to teach their kids. Right. They're just going to go to the movies. And a lot of people don't need a lot of success. I mean, you don't need to go win a tournament. Most people don't need or have any expectation or desire to ever even enter a tournament, much less win one. Right. They just want to be able to confidently go out there and know that they're not going to hurt anybody. Their kids are going to be safe. They're going to have a good time. And there's a reasonable expectation to catch a fish. Yeah. Right? Yes, and along the way, they might catch a different kind of fish. That's cool. Yep. But just enough to know, look, we're in the right place. We're doing the right things. Some days the fish don't bite. Some days they do bite. But I just don't feel like a complete idiot out here.
Right.
And I'm actually having fun. And you know what? The most important thing is my kid's having fun, and we're spending a lot of time together.
Yep.
And we found something that we can do together.
Yeah.
And he's not on his Game Boy all day or whatever. Do they even have Game Boys anymore? That's how old I am. Okay, Joe. It's a little speed round.
All right.
And we're going to finish this up with just a couple of questions that I scratched down right before you walked in the door. Favorite superhero?
Man, Walt Disney is not a superhero, but like he's the guy. To me, talking about creating memories, he's put so many smiles on so many people's faces. So to me, he's a superhero.
Okay, he's a superhero. Yeah. That's it. Favorite quote?
Oh man,
it's going to be a tough one because you have 1,000 million of them.
I'm just going to say failing forward. I mean, that's one of our big missions. That's in terms of our core, core benefits, and our core metrics. We always say is fail forward. Don't be afraid to try something new and learn from the mistakes and keep failing forward.
Yeah, failing forward.
Short and sweet.
There's also, you can extrapolate that out just a little bit and be like, ready, fire, aim, and like. You're ready to do something.
Right.
You take action and then you adjust as you move through there. And that is failing forward. It's not being afraid to fail.
Yep.
Because if you're afraid to fail, you're never gonna have success. The people who have had the most success have failed the most.
Yeah.
The difference between those people and the other people is that they either quit or they didn't learn from the mistakes and they kept making the same mistakes over and over again. Just like you said, just learn from it.
I don't remember if I put the torpedo analogy in the book or not.
What is that?
There was some stat on a torpedo leaves, let's just say a battleship, and it's got a target. And that torpedo usually is always going to hit that target. And it might be 5-10 miles away. And in that 5 to 10 miles, that torpedo leaves point A. It knows where it's supposed to hit, and it usually hits that area pretty much precisely. But it takes around 10,000. That's the number that I read. 10,000 different little small pivots to finally hit the right target. 10,000, and that's kind of like my business and not really our lives in general. Is once you have that plan, and especially when you write something down, like my wife and I did, we're not going to get there overnight. And we might take 100,000 different pivots, but I think that's just so important to keep failing, know where you're trying to be, and realize where you are today, and then it's not going to happen overnight, and you're going to have to fail and move a lot. You're going to have to pivot a lot, but eventually you'll get there. And that's kind of how we're living our lives and our business, and slowly but surely, we still have those 16 questions, printed out and written down, and I bring them out every once in a while, and we're getting closer and closer all the time. And it's pretty cool. And it might change. We might do it again in a couple of years, and it changes a little bit more, but just keep pivoting. But that's why I love the fail forward. It's just
good advice. Okay, Rocky or Rudy?
Rudy.
Are you Rudy or like Rudy or Rocky?
Rocky gets you pumped up, but like Rudy, I emotionally, like I cried during, like
me too.
Who didn't, right?
Who didn't?
Right.
Come on,
but
man.
Rocky was more like you get
like
pumped
really,
up.
You didn't cry during Rudy. I mean, seriously, what were you doing? You were watching it while you were making dinner or something in the kitchen? Like I admit it.
And they were playing Georgia Tech. So a lot of cool memories. That was,
I didn't even think about the Georgia Tech part, but I knew just with all the books and everything else, those movies were probably both inspirational to you as they were to me too.
Yeah.
Most gifted book.
Oh, most gifted? Mm-hmm. Well, besides my own.
Let's go beside your own.
The one I've given the most recently is Think and Grow Rich. It's an awesome one. It's one that everyone needs to read, and I give that away more than anything else. I'm trying to think. That's got to be because I've given that away recently.
Mm-hmm. Morning routine.
So I have and I talk about it in the book. Every morning it's 5:15 now. It was 5:11 for whatever reason.
So weird. I wake up at 5:02.
Do you really?
Yeah. I don't know. I had an old alarm clock that was broken on the minutes, so I couldn't set the minutes. So I would just set the hours, and I kept assuming that this thing was just going to die any day, but it lasted for years and years and years. So I got the habit of waking up at 5:02.
Too fun.
And And then even when I got a new alarm clock, it's 5:02. That's when I get up.
So I'm 9 minutes after you.
Yeah. See,
approximately.
that's why I got the edge.
But it's so true. When I wake up early, and I would encourage everyone to do this, even if you're not a morning person, and my wife is not, and she's been doing it. And I mean, we are both happier. Like, we get more stuff done. And anyhow, to answer your question, so early in the morning, I always do some type of workout, whether even if it's just 20 minutes walk around the block just to clear my head. That's usually what I'm doing first now, and I've been changing it up. But I always write like what I'm grateful for. I think that's so important. And even though, like, my brother and I get in arguments occasionally, he's usually one of the first people I'm say I'm grateful for. And I feel like every time I do it, even if that night, like we had, I mean, as brothers, the good news about working with a brother or family member is you get stuff off your chest quickly, and it doesn't sit there and fester. But bad news is it gets off your chest quickly, and it doesn't come to blows. But like, I remember nights where I'm like literally angry with him. Next morning, I was like, I'm grateful for my brother Luke. And like, I feel like a burden comes off your chest, and like, you can't really grow if you're angry, or if you just have anger towards someone or something. And so I always write what I'm grateful for, and write a little bit about just what's happening, because I do want to write more books, and I want to be able to go back with this kind of daily journal, which I'm pretty good about doing every day. And just like, man, that's where I was at that time. That's what I was feeling. That was what I was struggling with. This is the stuff that was awesome, that was really working. And it's just a paragraph, and that's it. So that, and then I am bad about, I write it in the book, that in the visualization and kind of meditating, it's like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. I think that is really important, just to kind of take a breath or 2 or 10, and just kind of think about what you want to get done that day, be grateful for it, and then go out there and kick some booty.
Yeah. Execute.
Yep.
All right. Favorite color?
Blue.
And your favorite fish to catch?
I'd say the snook. We grew up bass fishing in Winter Haven, Florida, and the snook is kind of like that bass on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're sneaky too.
Yeah.
They're sneaky.
Even though...
Well, Joe, you're a beast. It's a pleasure to know you, because you're so positive, man. You're just super happy. You got a smile on your face all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And, somewhere deep inside there, I don't know you that well, but I can kind of see what you might look like with a scowl on your face. And I see that maybe that's how it was, a few years before you started Salt Strong, and now you're just smiling ear to ear, and it's just super pleasure to be around, and it's infectious and contagious, and that has shown through in the 51,000 that are following you super closely, but countless hundreds of thousands that are following you from a little further away. And it's not just you; it's your brother too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you and your brother are an outstanding team that each bring something interesting to the table. And for whatever reason, man, you guys have you've really created something that a lot of people are getting behind. It's a movement, it's a motion, it's in motion, and just wish you all the best, and hope we'll work together.
Thank you for all the help. Like I said, you were that guy that I look to as a mentor from day one, that actually like took me under your wing. Even though it was like a 4-hour lunch, but you literally told me, like, I learned so much in those 4 hours about just how the business works. And it was really eye-opening.
Well,
and I want to be able to do that to someone else. So thank you.
It's nice for you to say that, and I appreciate it. I'm just glad that actually went somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, man.
We'll do it again.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming to the podcast today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Joe Simonds of Salt Strong. That's really a great conversation. I really very much enjoyed it. I love having Joe as a part of the fishing community, and all the things that he and his brother Luke are doing with Salt Strong, getting more and more people interested in fishing. And man, listen, if you're not happy with your life, if you're unfulfilled, it's not too late. Change it. Do something about it. And you could be like Joe Simonds, smiling ear to ear every time I see him. The guy is truly one of the happiest guys I know. And that conversation tells me that if you're not happy about your life and where you are right now, it's as easy as just walking through some of those exercises that he showed us and changing it. Hey, send us an email, podcast@Saltwater Experience. Let us know that you're listening. Tag us on Instagram at either Tom_Rowland or Saltwater Experience. Let me know what you think about the podcast. If you got suggestions for guests, drop those in there too. You can hear all past episodes on iTunes by searching Tom Rowland Podcast, or you can go to our website, saltwaterexperience.com, nbsp.com/podcast, and you can hear every one of the episodes that we have through SoundCloud. Until next week, thank you.